Picture this. It's 7 a.m. Your alarm screams at you like it's personally offended by your existence. You roll out of bed, already feeling like you're behind. You check your phone, because of course you do, and there it is. The world's happiest people staring back at you. The Instagram yogi doing a handstand on a beach at sunrise, captioning it, "Living my best life." The LinkedIn hustler who just closed a $1 million deal and wants you to know they did it while sipping artisanal coffee. The TikTok family dancing in perfect sync, their kitchen looking like it belongs in a magazine. Everyone's happy, everyone's thriving, everyone's got it all figured out. Except you. You're sitting there, bleary-eyed, scrolling through this endless parade of joy, and there's this knot in your stomach. It's not just the bad coffee you chugged to stay awake. It's something deeper. Something that whispers, "Why aren't you that happy? What's wrong with you? You've got a job, maybe a decent one. You've got a roof over your head, maybe even a nice one. You've checked off some boxes, school, career, maybe a relationship or two. But that glowing, effortless happiness everyone else seems to have. It feels like a club you didn't get an invite to. And the more you scroll, the tighter that knot gets. It's not just envy, it's a quiet, gnawing fear that you're missing something, that you're doing life wrong. Sound familiar? If it does, you're not alone. And if it doesn't, stick around, because you might be one of the lucky few who hasn't fallen for the great deception of modern society about happiness. Because here's the truth, and I'm going to say it loud enough for the people in the back. What we've been sold as happiness is a lie. It's a shiny, curated, Instagram-filtered trap. And if you're not careful, it'll keep you running on a treadmill that never stops, chasing a feeling that doesn't exist, not the way they tell you it does anyway. Let's unpack this. Let's pull back the curtain and expose the great deception about happiness. Because the world has convinced us that happiness is something you get, a destination, a prize, a perfectly posed moment you can post online. But what if happiness isn't something you chase? What if it's something you already have, buried under layers of noise, comparison, and a society that's banking on you never figuring it out? Today, we're going to dig into that. We're going to lean on the wisdom of philosophers, psychologists, and thinkers like Søren Kierkegaard, Viktor Frankl, and Carl Jung to make sense of it. We're going to tell some stories, real ones, messy ones, maybe even funny ones. And by the end, I hope you'll walk away with a new lens on what happiness really means. Not the world's version, yours. So, grab a coffee, or, a $12 oat milk latte if that's your vibe, and let's dive in. Let's start with that knot in your stomach. You know the one. It shows up when you're scrolling through your feed, or when your coworker casually mentions their life-changing vacation to Bali, or when you're sitting at a family dinner and your cousin's talking about their dream job while you're just trying to figure out how to pay your electric bill. It's that feeling of not enough, not happy enough, not successful enough, not anything enough. This isn't an accident. Society has built a machine that runs on that feeling. It's called the happiness hustle, and it's relentless. From the moment you wake up, you're bombarded with messages about what happiness looks like. Buy this skincare routine and you'll glow like a goddess. Get this car and you'll feel like you've arrived. Book this vacation and you'll finally be living. It's not just ads either. It's the culture we swim in, the shows we binge, the influencers we follow, the self-help books promising 10 steps to your happiest life. They all point to the same finish line. Happiness is out there, and you're one purchase, one achievement, one moment away from it. But here's the kicker. The finish line keeps moving. You buy the thing, you take the trip, you hit the goal, and nothing. Or maybe a fleeting high, like the sugar rush from a cheap candy bar. It feels good for a second, then it's gone, and you're left crashing, wondering why you still don't feel happy. In 2024, a Gallup poll found that only 47% of Americans reported being very happy. despite living in one of the wealthiest, most opportunity-rich countries in the world. Think about that. Less than half of us are very happy, even with all the stuff, all the freedom, all the options we're told will make us happy. Why? Because the happiness hustle isn't designed to make you happy, it's designed to keep you wanting. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry built on convincing you that you're one step away from the good life, and the moment you get close, it changes the rules. You got the promotion? Great. Now you need the corner office. You lost the weight? Cool. Now you need the six-pack. You went viral? Awesome. Now you need 1 million followers. It's like playing a game where the prize is always just out of reach, and the only way to keep playing is to keep spending, keep striving, keep performing. And it's not just about money or status. It's about the performance of happiness itself. We've all seen it. The pressure to look happy, act happy, be happy, even when you're falling apart inside. You post the smiling selfie, but you're crying in the car 5 minutes later. You laugh at the party, but you go home feeling emptier than ever. We're all actors in this grand production, and the script says, if you're not happy, you're failing. But what if the script is wrong? Let's talk about how we got here, because this didn't happen overnight. Somewhere along the way, happiness went from being a state of being to a product you're supposed to buy. It's no longer about feeling at peace with who you are. It's about having the right stuff to prove you're happy. The right house, the right wardrobe, the right vacation photos. And if you don't have those things, well, you must not be trying hard enough. This shift has roots, and they run deep. Let's bring in Søren Kierkegaard, the 19th century Danish philosopher who wrestled with the question of what it means to live a meaningful life. Kierkegaard warned about what he called the despair of comparison. He said that when we measure our lives against others, when we let the crowd decide what's valuable, we lose ourselves. The moment you compare yourself to another, he wrote, you cease to be yourself. Sound familiar? Every time you scroll through social media, you're stepping into Kierkegaard's nightmare. You're not just looking at other people's lives, you're letting their highlight reels define your worth. And the more you do that, the further you drift from your own truth. Kierkegaard wasn't alone in seeing this. Fast forward to the 20th century and Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, dug even deeper. Jung talked about the persona, the mask we wear to fit into society's expectations. For Jung, the pursuit of happiness often becomes a performance of the persona. We craft this polished, happy version of ourselves, the one who's always living their best life, because we think that's what the world wants. But the more we lean into that mask, the more we disconnect from our true self, what Jung called the self with a capital S. That's the part of you that knows what you really want, what really matters, even when the world screams at you to want something else. Here's where it gets wild. Jung believed that true happiness, or what he might call wholeness, doesn't come from chasing external rewards. It comes from something called individuation, the process of integrating all parts of yourself, even the messy ones, the ones you're ashamed of, the ones you hide. When you stop running from your shadow, those parts of you society says aren't good enough, and start embracing them, you start to feel whole. And that wholeness, that's where real happiness lives. Not in the applause of the crowd, but in the quiet confidence of knowing who you are. But society doesn't make money off wholeness. It makes money off insecurity. Think about it. If you were truly content, would you buy that $200 face cream? Would you sign up for that $5,000 course promising to unlock your potential? Would you keep upgrading your phone, your car, your life just to keep up? Probably not. The happiness hustle needs you to feel like you're missing something. It needs you to believe that happiness is just one purchase, one achievement, one like away. And it's been doing a bang-up job of convincing you. Let's tell a story to bring this home. Meet Sarah. Sarah's 32, a marketing manager at a mid-sized company. She's got a nice apartment, a solid paycheck, and a feed full of aesthetically pleasing brunch photos. By all accounts, Sarah's winning at life. But every night, when the notifications stop and the apartment gets quiet, Sarah feels nothing. Not happy, not sad, just numb. She's got the job she worked years for, the wardrobe she curated to look put together, the vacation she posted about to 1,200 followers. But it's not enough. She scrolls through her phone, sees her old college friend who just bought a house, sees her co-worker who just got engaged, and that knot in her stomach tightens. Why don't I feel happy, she thinks. I'm doing everything right. Sarah's story isn't unique. It's the story of millions of us, caught in the happiness hustle without even realizing it. We've been taught that happiness is a checklist. Get the degree, land the job, buy the house, find the partner, post the proof. But when you check all the boxes and still feel empty, what then? That's when the deception starts to crack. Because happiness was never in the boxes. It was never in the likes, the followers, the promotions. It's in you, buried under the noise, waiting to be uncovered. Let's zoom out and look at how this deception plays out in real time. It's not just about buying stuff, it's about the way we've been trained to measure ourselves. We live in the age of comparison, and it's killing us. Not literally, though the stress and anxiety aren't exactly great for your heart, but it's killing our ability to feel content, to feel enough. In 2023, a study from the American Psychological Association found that social media use is directly linked to higher rates of anxiety and depression, especially among young adults. Why? Because every time you open your phone, you're stepping into a gladiator arena of comparison. You're not just seeing other people's lives, you're seeing their highlight reels. The curated, filtered, best version of themselves moments. And your brain, bless its little evolutionary wiring, doesn't know the difference. It sees someone else's perfect vacation and thinks, that's what I should have. It sees someone else's perfect relationship and thinks, that's what I'm missing. It sees someone else's perfect life and thinks, that's what I need to be happy. But here's the thing, those perfect lives, they're not real. They're performances. That influencer with the flawless skin, she's got a team of editors and a ring light. That couple with the perfect marriage, they fought about whose turn it was to do the dishes right before they filmed that cute TikTok. That entrepreneur who's living the dream, he's drowning in debt to keep up the image. We're all playing the same game, pretending we've got it together, hoping someone will believe it so we can believe it too. Let's bring in another thinker, Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust and wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Frankl knew a thing or two about suffering, and he had a radical take on happiness. He said, it's not something you pursue directly. Happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue, he wrote. In other words, you don't chase happiness. You create the conditions for it to show up by living a life of meaning. For Frankl, meaning came from purpose, whether that's loving someone, creating something, or finding a reason to keep going even in the darkest moments. When you chase happiness as a goal, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. But when you focus on meaning, happiness sneaks in through the back door. So why do we keep chasing? Because the world has made comparison our default setting. It's not enough to have a good life. You need a better life than someone else. It's not enough to feel okay. You need to feel happier than the person next to you. And the more you compare, the more you lose sight of what actually matters to you. You stop asking, what makes me feel alive? And start asking, what makes me look happy? That's the trap. And it's a hard one to climb out of. Here's where it gets heavy. The happiness hustle doesn't just make you tired. It doesn't just stress you out or empty your bank account. It costs you something far more precious, your sense of self. When you spend your life chasing a version of happiness that's been sold to you, you start to lose touch with who you are. You start to forget what you actually want. You become a character in someone else's story, playing a role you didn't write. Let's go back to Sarah. After years of chasing the happy life, she started to notice something. She wasn't just tired, she was disconnected. She couldn't remember the last time she did something just because it made her feel alive. She used to love painting, but she hadn't touched a canvas in years because it wasn't productive. She used to love long walks, but she traded them for spin classes because they burned more calories. She used to love deep, messy conversations with friends, but now her social life was a series of posed brunches and quick texts. Somewhere along the way, Sarah stopped being Sarah. She became a version of herself designed to fit the world's idea of happiness. This is what Jung meant when he talked about the danger of the persona. The more you lean into the mask, the happy, successful, perfect version of yourself, the more you disconnect from the real you. The you that doesn't need to perform, the you that doesn't care about likes or followers or what your neighbor thinks, the you that's messy, flawed, and gloriously human. That's the you that knows what happiness feels like, not as a performance, but as a state of being. But the world doesn't make it easy to find that you. Everywhere you turn, there's another message telling you to be shinier, better, more. And the more you listen, the more you start to believe that your real self isn't enough. You start to hide the parts of yourself that don't fit the script. You dim your quirks, your dreams, your quiet moments of joy, because they don't get applause. You trade authenticity for approval, and the cost is your soul. Let's tell another story. Meet James. James is 45, a lawyer with a corner office, a 6-figure salary, and a family that looks like it's stepped out of a stock photo. By every metric, James is the picture of happiness. But James hasn't slept through the night in years. He lies awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering why he feels so empty. He's got the house, the car, the vacations. He's got the life he was told would make him happy. But when he's alone, when the noise of the world fades, he feels like a stranger to himself. He can't remember the last time he laughed. Not the polite chuckle he uses at client dinners, but a real, belly-deep laugh. He can't remember the last time he felt free. One day, James stumbles across an old journal from his 20s. It's full of dreams he'd forgotten, dreams of writing a novel, traveling without a plan, learning to play the guitar. None of those dreams were big or flashy. They weren't about status or money. They were about feeling alive. As he reads, James starts to cry. Not because he's sad, but because he realizes how far he's drifted from the person he used to be. The person who knew what happiness felt like before the world told him what it should be. James's story isn't rare. It's the story of anyone who's ever woken up one day and realized they're living someone else's life. And it's the cost of the happiness hustle. When you chase a version of happiness that's not yours, you don't just lose time or energy, you lose you. So, how do we break free? How do we step off the treadmill and reclaim happiness on our own terms? It starts with a wake-up call. A moment of clarity where you realize the game you're playing isn't worth winning. For some people, that moment comes quietly, like it did for James when he found his old journal. For others, it's loud. A burnout, a breakdown, a crisis that forces you to stop and ask, what am I even doing this for? Let's bring in another voice, the Dalai Lama. He's got a pretty good track record when it comes to happiness, right? He once said, happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions. Simple, but profound. The Dalai Lama isn't talking about buying a new car or getting 1 million followers. He's talking about the choices you make every day. Choices to align with your values, to connect with people you love, to do things that make you feel alive, even if no one else notices. Happiness isn't a product you consume, it's a practice you build. This is where the storytelling gets personal. Let me tell you about my friend Mia. Mia was the queen of the happiness hustle. She had a high-powered job in tech, a wardrobe that could make a fashion blogger jealous, and a social media presence that screamed, "I've got it all together." But Mia was miserable. She was working 80-hour weeks, popping anxiety meds like candy, and crying herself to sleep most nights. One day, she hit a wall. She couldn't get out of bed, not because she was tired, but because she couldn't face another day of pretending. Mia's wake-up call came in the form of a question. What would I do if no one was watching? That question changed everything. She started small. She quit her job. Not dramatically, but deliberately, taking a lower-paying role that gave her time to breathe. She stopped posting every detail of her life online. She started gardening, not because it was trendy, but because it made her feel grounded. She started calling her old friends, not to network, but to laugh and talk about nothing. Slowly, Mia started to feel something she hadn't felt in years: herself. Mia's story isn't about giving up ambition or living off the grid. It's about redefining happiness. It's about realizing that the world's version of happiness, more money, more stuff, more likes, will never fill the hole inside you. Because that hole isn't shaped like a paycheck or a follower count, it's shaped like you. And the only way to fill it is to start living from the inside out. So, what's the antidote to the happiness hustle? It's not quitting your job or moving to a cabin in the woods. Though, hey, if that's your thing, go for it. The antidote is simpler, but harder. It's about reclaiming your definition of happiness. It's about deciding what matters to you, not what the world says should matter. It's about building a life that feels good, not one that looks good. Let's break it down into something practical. Here are 3 steps to start living from within, inspired by the wisdom of the thinkers we've talked about. 1. Pause and reflect. Kierkegaard's lesson. Stop comparing. Seriously, stop. Put down the phone, step away from the screen, and ask yourself, what do I want when no one's watching? Not what your parents want, not what your friends expect, not what the algorithm rewards. What makes you feel alive? For Kierkegaard, the key to a meaningful life was to stop letting the crowd define you. Take a notebook, write down what you love, what you're curious about, what you'd do if failure wasn't an option. That's your starting point. 2. Embrace your shadow. Jung's lesson. Stop hiding the parts of yourself you think aren't good enough. The quirks, the flaws, the dreams you're embarrassed to admit. Jung's idea of individuation is about becoming whole by accepting all of you, not just the shiny parts. Try this. Write down one thing you've been hiding. Maybe a passion you gave up, a fear you're ashamed of, a dream you think is silly. Then take one small step toward owning it. Maybe it's picking up that guitar again, or admitting to a friend that you're struggling. Wholeness starts with honesty. 3. Find meaning, not happiness. Frankl's lesson. Stop chasing happiness as a goal. Instead, chase meaning. What gives your life purpose? Maybe it's raising your kids, creating art, helping your community, or just being a good friend. For Frankl, meaning was the foundation of a good life. Find one thing you can do today that aligns with your purpose, no matter how small. Call someone you love. Volunteer for something you care about. Do something that matters to you, not the crowd. These steps aren't a quick fix. They're a practice. And they're not easy because the world will keep pulling you back to the treadmill. It'll keep telling you to hustle, to compare, to perform. But every time you choose yourself, your real self, not the mask, you're taking a step toward freedom. Let's wrap this up with a final story, one that brings it all together. Meet Alex. Alex was 28, working a soul-sucking retail job, living in a cramped apartment and feeling like a failure. Everyone around him seemed to have it figured out. Better jobs, better lives, better everything. Alex spent his nights scrolling, comparing, and hating himself for not being there yet. But one day, something shifted. He was walking home from work, exhausted, when he passed a park. Kids were playing, laughing, completely lost in the moment. No phones, no filters, just joy. Alex stopped. He sat on a bench and watched. And for the first time in years, he felt something. Something small, but real. He realized he couldn't remember the last time he'd let himself just be. Not chasing, not comparing, just existing. That moment was his wake-up call. He started making changes, not big ones, but intentional ones. He stopped scrolling so much. He started reading books that sparked his curiosity. He took up hiking not for the Instagram pics, but because it made him feel alive. He started talking to people, not to impress them, but to connect. Today, Alex isn't rich or famous. He's still figuring things out, but he's happier than he's ever been. Not because he made it, but because he stopped trying to. He stopped letting the world define his happiness and started listening to himself. And that's the lesson. Happiness isn't something you find. It's something you uncover. It's already there, buried under the noise, waiting for you to stop long enough to see it. So, here's my challenge to you. Right now, as you're watching this, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what would happiness look like if no one was watching? Not the world's version, not your boss's version, not your followers' version, yours. Maybe it's quieter than you thought. Maybe it's messier. Maybe it's simpler. But it's yours. And that's enough. If this resonates with you, if it's stirring something inside, don't just scroll past. Sit with it. Let it sink in. And if you're ready to start uncovering your own happiness, hit that subscribe button. Join us as we keep peeling back the layers of the world's deceptions and rediscovering what it means to live a life that's true. Thank you for being here. Now go out there and start living like you already matter, because you do.